Good morning. My name is Greg Jackson. I work with the Legacy of Hope. I am a hospital development coordinator, also known as Partner Services. I am interviewing Miss Nanette Gardner this morning, and she's going to talk to us about her loved one who was a donor. Miss Nanette, good morning.
Good morning, Greg.
I would like for you to tell me a little bit about your loved one that was a donor.
The donor in my family
Yes.
was my mother, Catherine Fletcher. She died in 2019.
Okay. Tell me, what was Miss Fletcher like?
Mrs. Fletcher, my mother, was wonderful. She was very loving and very kind, a little silly, having grown up with a total of 10 siblings here in Alabama.
Okay.
A lot of mischief. Just made her a well-rounded woman.
Yeah.
She gave birth to 7 of us,
Mm-hmm.
only 6 remaining. She was very loyal, very independent, especially for a woman who grew up in the era that she did. She was one of those women that she would tinker around and try to fix things at home. And she'd call in, big guards when it got out of hand, but she would always make an effort. And that's what I grew up watching, that independence.
Tell me, when did Miss Fletcher become a donor?
That is a mystery to all of us, honestly. Until the day she passed and I got a call in the hospital,
Mm-hmm.
had no idea she was a donor. We come from a very large family. At the time, there had to be 30, 40 people in the waiting area.
Okay.
Not one single person knew she was a donor.
So tell me about that conversation of donation. How did it come up?
I was summoned out of the waiting area, and I took this call and was being told that she was a donor. It didn't register with me. I honestly thought that the caller was asking me, would I authorize her to be a donor?
Mm-hmm.
So it was a little shocking at first, the process of grieving and the shock that was taking place. And then this call was honestly a little intrusive. When I realized that they were calling me to inform me that my mother had actually signed up to be a donor, wow, it changed everything.
Yes.
Here it is, this wonderful woman, loving and always doing whatever she can for anyone,
Mm-hmm.
was thoughtful enough to make sure her last breath still took care of someone. And by the time I finished the call, and it took a little bit of time because it's very important and there's a lot of questions. By the time I returned back to my family, I had this sense of pride that I didn't feel in that moment of grief. So maybe 2 weeks into her death,
Yes.
I received a letter stating that her eye tissue had restored the sight of someone. And when I tell you, grief is so hard to deal with.
Yes.
And I walked in my house and I had the mail and I opened it up, this letter, and saw these statements about vision being restored because of her tissue.
Yes.
When I say I fell to my knees, I fell to my knees. It just, the hardest part about grief and death is that in an instant, all hope is gone.
Yeah.
It's just gone. And what she did as a donor, it's like it gave that hope back, not to me, but to someone else. And it was just phenomenal to me.
So when you received that call and they asked you to go into another room and talk to that person on the other end of the phone, and they told you that your mom could be a donor, what was the compelling thing for you that said, yes, I will go ahead and do this questionnaire?
We all know what it means to be a donor.
Yes.
We all know. but it's one of those things you don't think about it.
Right.
And in that moment, I'm realizing all the benefits that this woman can do for someone else, you know, and it's like, for me, she's being sent out into the world, you know,
Yes.
to live on through someone else.
Yes.
So that's what did it for me.
So let me ask you a question. Now that your mom was a hero to
Yes.
more than one person, how do you and your family view donation now?
Some short time after this in 2019, I signed up and became a donor,
Mm-hmm.
and my daughter did so this year.
What about any other family members?
Um, I think it's one of those things that I'll have a come to Jesus meeting with them and
Yes.
sit down and talk about it. Again, it's one of those things that, you know, everybody has their phobias. For some people, it's religious. For
Yeah.
a lot of people, they just don't think about it. Um, you know, I mean, we plan, you know, where we want to be buried. We do our last will and testament. You know, we pick out policies, but no one thinks about, you know, the organs, even the body for that matter.
Correct. Yes.
That's not a conversation most people have. You know, I'm embarrassed to say it now, but way back then, it was one of those things along the lines of a conspiracy theory. It's like, well, if I sign up now and I get a little bump on my head and there's some wealthy one percenter who needs an organ, will I make it out? Now I know how absurd that is, but you know, being young and silly and watching these movies, I think it came into my mind and I pushed it back with the intention of revisiting it later.
Yes.
Um, and until this happened with my mom, and if she weren't a donor,
Mm-hmm.
probably still wouldn't be considering it. It's just, again, it's something that you don't think about.
Right. And you know, within the African American communities and in some other communities, that is a taboo subject. People seem
Yes.
to believe. Um, but now that you've been educated and you have a loved one, that legacy lives on, what would be one of the things that you would tell somebody else about registered to be an organ donor?
I would tell them, um, again, regardless of what your religious philosophies are,
Mm-hmm.
when we die, whether buried in the ground, you know, or cremated, those organs go. They're
Yes.
not going to be used again. Even for those of us who believe in a resurrection, those organs will not be a part of that. Those organs can give someone a better quality of life, possibly even save their lives. And at the end of the day, we're all our brother's keepers. We
Yes.
were designed to love and care for each other. Um, and that's one way we help life to advance and to continue on. You know, they're not reproducing organs. All the greatness that man has, they're not able to do that. It takes us doing that for each other.